Hi, my name is Rob Latour, and I'd like to show you a little project I put together. It involves an ESP32 dev board, a little receiver module, some wiring and buttons, and a remote control, something like this, a 4-button remote control. Carry it around with you. And basically what it allows you to do is have your ESP32 communicate with your, in this case, my Windows computer or my iPad or anything that runs Bluetooth, I guess, and send predefined keystrokes to it. So for example, and more. So example, if I press the A button on here, it'll send this big long string, which is a string that I often copy and paste from my PC to my MQTT server, and so rather than do that, I just press that little button there. So you can, and this video is mostly about how we can work with that and how we can change the buttons and some extra features that come along. So each button then is configurable, and how we change the button is there's a there's a little button on this ESP32 control board which I can press, which I'll just press now, and what that does is it has the ESP will connect to my computer via Wi-Fi, and then it'll host up a web page. It'll open up the web page, and it'll open it up at the ESP32's address, which is that right there, and there's the button values as they're set. So here's the current button values. And I'll walk through each of those, and I'll talk a little bit about them and some other things that you can do. So first of all, you can send a big long string like this if you want, and these are just regular characters, and in the end I hit the return key. So there's some special keys that you can't just type, you need to say what they are, like page up might be another one, for example. So if you look at the code, which is available as open source on GitHub, and you can get a link to it. I'll put a link to it below, as well as a link to where the project's described on Hackaday, if you're interested. But here in the code, you can see a list of all those special keys that you can use, and there's some additional ones. These ones that you wouldn't expect. So if you put in squiggly brackets an explanation 1 to all the way to 9, it'll put in a delay between the keystrokes if you want, of up to 9 seconds, and some additional commands here which I'll explain to you as we go on a little further. So so let me see. So that's the one I showed you. This is another one. We just type this as something else to type. So I could show you that. Open that up here. It'll open up. There it is. I press button B. It'll type. This is something else to type. Now, if I wanted to change the location of these two buttons with this screen opened, well, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. So if I wanted to change the value of any of these buttons, I just this is something different to type. And let's say that's the only change I wanted to make. I just hit this update button at the bottom, and then what it'll do is it'll make the update. It'll take about 10 seconds for the ESP32 to reset itself, and then it will all be there. So I think that was button B, I think that was. So let's see what button B says now. I can't remember if it was button B or C. B. Yeah, so there it is. So that's how it is. So I'm going to open up that screen. So I can press the button here in the control panel, or I can press the 4th button here and hold it for 5 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then let go. And that'll do the same thing as me pressing the button down below. Now I'll say I'm doing this on a Windows computer, and on a Windows computer it can send the keystrokes. What it's doing is it's actually just sending the keystrokes to say, hey, open up my browser and open it up to this address, and this is the address of your ESP32 on your network. So if you're not running a Windows computer, what you would do, let's say you're running an iPad and you wanted to open it up, you'd bring up Safari on your iPad, you'd clear out the URL line, and you just put the cursor at the beginning of the URL line, and then press that fourth button for 5 seconds, or the button on the control panel. It'll type in the IP address there, and it'll open it up in the same way. It's just with Windows, it can actually open up the browser without you having to do that other stuff. But anyways, here we are back at the control panel for changing the keys. Now I'll say what goes on is when you have keys to save like that, it'll save it in permanent memory on the ESP32. Now there's a limit to that. There's 512 bytes that you can use for storage of things like that. I need 3 bytes to separate the buttons out, so there's 509 bytes that you can use across the in total across the 4 keys. But in some cases you may want more than that. So in the sketch, so I'm going to open up the sketch again here, and in the user settings there are some extra special buttons here. Let me just make that a little smaller so we can see them side by side. But basically you can actually have these 4 macros defined. So if I was to type hit this button for macro 3, when I'm not in this window, it will type in whatever I have here. So it would type in, and let me just show you this. I'm going to hit cancel this time because I don't want to make any changes. So I'm going to close that. It still needs to reboot. But if I press macro 3, or I press the C button, which was the calls for macro 3 to be run, it's going to type this, whatever you have in your user settings. So if you wanted that to be like 5 paragraphs worth of text, you can go ahead and put 5 paragraphs worth of text in there and just recompile the sketch and upload it. So that's kind of a way to get around the 509 byte limit if you need to. But in most cases, I'm thinking that the 509 bytes will do it for you across the 4 keys, or it has for me anyways. But anyways, that's just something there to know. So I'm going to open up that browser window and show you a few more things. So we'll just have that come up. Okay, so that's this. So another function that I programmed in here is a kind of a wake up on LAN function. So for those not familiar with wake up on LAN, there's a special command you can broadcast over your network, which involves the MAC address of your PC's network card. And if you put it in, so if you type in here wake up on LAN and then the MAC ID of your PC, you can actually use that button. When you press that button, what it'll do is it'll have the ESP, rather than send Bluetooth keystrokes, it'll send a magic packet, that's what they call them, magic packets, throughout your network to find your PC, and if it's off, turn it on. So that's a nice little feature. So you can use this to turn on your computer, and you can actually use it if you have a Windows computer to shut down your computer, and that's really just there's a set of commands here that'll work only with Windows 10. So basically, for example, if I wanted to shut down my computer, what I would do is I'd hit the Windows key, and then I'd hit with the Windows key down, I'd hit X, and then I would hit let me just see, so shutdown is X, and then I'd hit U, and then I'd hit U again, which I won't do just because I don't want to shut down my computer in the middle of this demo, but that would shut down my computer. So if I type in here shut down and then update that button, then I can use it to shut down my computer as well. So I can have it wake up my computer, I can have it shut down my computer, I can have it lock it, put it to sleep, sign it out, or restart it. Now, the one last thing I want to show you here is when I have this window open here, it's going to send keystrokes to the computer differently than when I have it closed. Okay, and let me explain that to you. So, let me give you an example. So here, and open up the window. The last time we had this window closed, we hit the C button and it typed out what was in the button 3 macro. Like it typed out the what was assigned to that macro. But if I type it now, let's say I have it here, and I want to type, if I hit that button, I don't want it to say button 3 macro, I want it to say what it's showing you there now. So if I hit this button here, it'll say macro 3 instead of the contents of this. So another example is this command here, which I typed at the beginning of the demo. You see how it came in there and it put the return key in? If I was to type that, if I was to hit this button with this window, this configuration window open, it'll say return. It won't do the carriage return, it'll say return. And why that is that's by design and on purpose. So let me just close that. The idea behind that is if you're in this screen and you want to tweak something, so let's say I wanted to change the position of these two buttons, I would go to button B and I would just press button A and it would type all that out, and I'd go to button A and I'd press button B, and that's effectively swapped it as soon as I press update. Okay, so you, in this case, you want those keys to be keyed like that, as opposed to the carriage return and inserted, and that's why it's done like that. Now, the one little thing, I'll give you two little warnings about this. So you have to press either update if you want to make the changes, or cancel. Okay, if you don't do that and you close the window like this. Okay, so cancel would just cancel all the changes, update would apply them. But if you do this, you just close the window, well then, the system doesn't, the ESP32 doesn't know that you've closed that window, and there's no way for me to communicate that back right now. So what it does is then it's still in the mode where it will type out, sorry, which one is that? It'll type out the whole thing with the word return, and we don't want that. So to get it out of that mode, if you find yourself stuck in there, there's 3 ways to fix it. You can hold the bottom button down for 5 seconds again. You can hit the little button on the control box. That'll take it out of that mode. So I've just done that now. So let me just so there, it took it out of that mode, and now it's doing the carriage return. Or I could just unplug the thing and plug it back in and it'll start. So basically that's kind of how the program works. It's actually kind of handy. I've used it for, like I say, you can set those buttons to be whatever you want. I'm hitting the button here, down and here again. So like one of the things I've done is, like I use it to turn on my computer, I use it to turn it off. You can use it to type in passwords, like if you had a password prompt, you could type in password. I don't know if that's advisable or not. You can deal with that as you want. You can use it to, like here, you just as simple as press the enter key. Okay, and if I did that, and pressed update, it would just, if I press button C, it would hit the enter key. And there's, in various situations, I've been in another room and I had my computer set up, and if I could only press enter on my keyboard from that other room, that would be great. And now I can do it because it has a pretty good reach to it. That's a kind of a nifty thing too. Now I'll say that just so the other issue is, I should tell you, the other issue is the program right now can't figure out, or at least I haven't figured out how to figure it out, if your numlocks is on or off, or your caps are on or off. so that it assumes your caps are off, caps lock is off, and your num locks are on. And then, so when it sends things, it sends them on that presumption. So the thing I want to say in closing is, where things are stored. So this doesn't store anything. It just, this remote is paired to the ESP32. Okay, and there's a little process that's explained in the documentation on how to pair it. But once this is paired, then it's the ESP32 that's holding all these values. So even if you were to take this around and you'd be at someone else's house and you press this button, well, that wouldn't work, because it needs to communicate with your ESP32 box, which is at your house and connected to your computer. If you at some point lose this, and you're concerned that somebody can come and with it and and do something with your computer, then all you do is there's a second button on the CSP box where you just press it, hold it down for 5 seconds, and what it does, it repairs. So what it's going to do, it will attempt to repair, not repair as in fix, but pairing as in hooking up. It will repair with this remote. If the remote is not around, excuse me, if the remote is not around, it won't repair it, and it'll also clean out all your button values when you do that. So what that'll do is it'll effectively make this lost remote, if it is lost, useless. So anyways, there's just some things there. Anyways, that's the project. It was fun putting together. It was mostly on the software side, although I did design that little PCB board that it fits into, and I'll leave links on the website, the Hackaday website, to that as well. And if you do decide to build something like this yourself, or use the software, it's all open source. It's on GitHub, as I said. You're welcome to it. Love to have your feedback. So thanks very much for your time, and I hope this will be of use to you. Cheers.